Welcome to Compassionate Pathway Podcast, where we explore the heart of healing, connection, and personal growth. I'm Amir Akbar, your host and guide on this journey toward clarity, understanding, and deeper relationships. This podcast is proudly presented by Talking Life Strategies, dedicated to fostering emotional resilience, meaningful connections, and compassionate living. The Compassionate Pathway Podcast is designed to support you in navigating life's challenges with grace, offering insights and tools that empower personal and relational growth. A podcast that helps you build deeper connections and navigate life's challenges with grace. Each episode, we dive into real conversations about emotional resilience, compassionate communication, and life-changing power of love. Whether you're seeking personal insight, relationship wisdom, or tools to navigate life's challenges with grace, you've come to the right place. Let's walk this path together, one step at a time. Now let's get into today's episode. Today we open the door to a story that families know too well. A father devoted to his calling, a son yearning for his presence, and the quiet distance that grew between them. Our story follows a minister, a man dedicated to serving his faith and his community. His words uplifted, his presence guided, but at home, his son saw something else. He saw a father whose heart was with others when he needed him most. As the years passed, the son's longing turned into frustration. He began to challenge his father's choices, shaming him for placing his congregation first. The minister, caught off guard, struggled to make sense of the resentment. Hadn't he provided? Hadn't his sacrifices been for the good of the family? Why did his son see only absence instead of love? This isn't just a story of a father and a son. It's a reflection of what happens when unspoken emotions create walls between loved ones. We'll explore how connection can be lost even when love is present, and more importantly, how it can be restored. If you ever struggle to balance purpose and family, or if you ever felt unseen by someone who cared for you, this is the episode. We'll speak to your heart. Let's step into the conversation that could change everything. Have you ever felt torn between pursuing your dreams and being there for your loved one? Or maybe you've been on the other side, watching someone you love chase success while feeling like you've been left behind. These emotions run deep, shaping the way we see ourselves and those closest to us. For the minister, his devotion to his calling wasn't just a job. It was his purpose. He believed he was building something meaningful, creating a foundation of faith and stability for his family. But his son's experience was different. He didn't see dedication. He saw distance. Even if his father was present at home, his heart and energy were always being pulled toward the congregation. And so the son's longing turned into resentment. His need for connection masked by frustration and criticism. This is where relationships often break down, not because there's no love, but because the way love is expressed doesn't always match the way it's received. The minister thought his sacrifices showed love. The son felt those same sacrifices proved he wasn't a priority. This is an emotional wound, a wound that forms when someone we depend on for emotional security feels absent, even when they believe they are doing what's best for us. And in these moments, we don't just react to the situation. We react to what it means to us. Am I not important? Do I matter? These silent questions drive our emotions, shaping how we respond to those we love. This is where the bond framework helps us pause and step into a different perspective. Before we react, we observe without judgment. We take a step back to recognize what's happening beneath the surface. What's driving the frustration, the defensiveness, the pain. Because if we don't, we stay locked in to the same cycle of disconnection. Let's break down this emotional cycle of the minister and his son. From the son's perspective, the son isn't just upset about his father's devotion to his calling. He's protesting what he perceives as an emotional abandonment. His words may sound like, "You cared more about the church than you did me." But what he's really saying is, "I needed more of you. But instead of saying, I needed you and I missed you, he shames his father's choices. His protest is a bid for closeness, but it comes out as an attack. Why? Because anger is safer than vulnerability. From the minister's perspective, the minister may feel misunderstood and defensive. He might think, I did this for our family, for our community, for something greater than myself. I never stopped loving my son. But instead of hearing a plea for connection, he hears rejection, maybe even disrespect. He feels unappreciated and possibly betrayed. He hears the shame and feels unappreciated. His instinct is to defend his choices. I did this for you. I did this for our family, instead of addressing his son's emotional need. When someone feels misunderstood, they protect themselves by closing off, leading to further disconnections. And here's where the emotional cycle forms. One protests, the other defends, and the distance between them grows. Instead of shutting down, they need to nurture dialogue by responding to what's underneath the words, not just reacting to the tone of the conflict. Conflict doesn't have to be the end of connection. It can be the beginning of something deeper. What if the very thing pulling you apart could actually bring you closer? In this next segment, we're talking about reframing the conflict for connection. Real tools to turn tension into trust. Let's break it down. The key to healing isn't debating whether the minister made the right choice. It's addressing the emotional needs. Here's how their conversation might sound with attunement instead of blame. The minister: I see now that when I was away, even though I thought I was doing the right thing, you felt alone. That wasn't my intention. But I hear your pain. The son: I felt like I wasn't important to you, and that hurt. I criticized you because I wanted to matter to you. In this step, the father acknowledges his son's pain without dismissing it. He observes without judgment. They recognize their emotional cycles instead of placing blame. They begin to nurture dialogue instead of defensiveness. They share what they truly feel. They create a new emotional experience that moves them towards healing. All right, we've made it to the final piece. Strategies for repairing the bond. How do we create a space where both sides feel safe enough to share openly and truly heal? It comes down to 4 key building blocks. And the first one is build openness through honest conversations. Real healing happens when we move past assumptions and defensiveness, and we step into genuine heart-to-heart dialogue. For example, the father might say, I always thought my ministry was a way of providing for you, a way of showing my care, but I can see now that it also made you feel distant from me. I really want to understand how that affected you. And the son might respond with, I know you never meant to hurt me. I want to understand what your ministry meant to you, but I also need to share what I was missing as your son. When both sides come from a place of curiosity instead of blame, the door to connection starts to open. The second step, slow down the emotional cycle. Observe without judgment. Instead of reacting to the anger or shame, pause. Ask, what is this really about? Step 3, use vulnerability instead of criticism. Instead of you cared more about your ministry than me, try this. I needed more time with you. Instead of you don't appreciate the sacrifices I made, try this. It hurts to feel like my devotion made you feel unloved. Step 4, create new moments of connection. Instead of just ministering to others, the father could invite his son into his personal spiritual journey. Small actions. Small actions. Use the phone, call, text, spend some quality time. Share affirmations. Letters of acknowledgement. Both write about what they admire about the other. New traditions together. Weekly conversations about faith, life, and emotion. At the heart of this story, there is a truth many of us face. Love and presence are not always the same thing. Success doesn't have to mean emotional loss. A father can love his son deeply yet still leave him feeling unseen. A son can long for connection yet struggle to express it in a way that invites closeness rather than conflict. But here's the great news. This connection isn't the end of the story. It's an opportunity for healing. Repairing relationships doesn't require rewriting the past, but it does require seeing it through a different lens. Instead of focusing on what was lost, we can focus on what can still be built. We have to learn to listen beyond words, to hear the longing beneath frustration and the love behind defensiveness. Emotional wounds can heal when we make space for vulnerability and understanding. So as you step away from this conversation, I invite you to reflect who in your life might be waiting for a deeper connection with you. Where might resentment be masking a deeper need for closeness? How can you take one small step today to bridge the gap? Because in the end, love is not just about what we've provided. It's about how we can show up for the people who need us most. Healing isn't about changing the past. It's about creating new emotional experiences in the present. If you've been stuck in this kind of conflict, start by shifting your focus from blame to understanding. If today's episode has resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections. Start a conversation. Until the next time, walk with compassion, lead with heart, and never underestimate the power of being present.